Okay, good afternoon, everyone from Los Angeles. Welcome to Stock Market Today. My name is Ken Shreve, joined today by Justin Nielsen. Not a great close for the indexes. We just ended with modest losses, but some selling late in the session. We'll talk about what happened in the market today. But before we do that, as usual, Justin's got three stocks to watch. Good afternoon, Justin.
Good afternoon, and it's going to be a little bit of a focus on retail today. We'll get into the Lululemon earnings, really strong gap up there. Again, not a great close given where it was at earlier in the day. We'll also take a look at RH and finish it out with a department store, Macy's.
Okay, very good. Well, let's get this screen share going here, and we'll start by taking a look at the Dow Jones, which ended near its session low, lower by only 0.4%, but a break of the 50-day moving average. Is this a big cause for concern here in terms of overall market health, Justin, or what's your take on what the Dow's doing?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's the Dow. So
Yeah.
again, one of the issues there is you've got 30 stocks and price weighted. So sometimes it can be a little bit out of phase with what's happening in the broader market, like in the S&P 500. That being said, this has been showing some signs of a little bit more of lagging. You look at that relative strength line, and it just has been in this downtrend for a while. So even though it's been making new highs, it really hasn't been moving nearly as strongly as the other indexes. So it's one of those things where you look at this. Okay, so now the Dow Jones Industrial Average is below its 50-day moving average line. You go over to the S&P 500, and that's starting to challenge its 21-day moving average line. So so far we haven't really had much in the way of pullbacks. The S&P 500 hasn't had basically a 5% pullback from close to close for well over 200 days now. So we're starting to approach that level that we saw back in 2017, where we just went a long time without that much of a correction. So here we are, coming down to the 21-day moving average line. There's nothing, I think, no reason to panic yet, but a pullback here wouldn't be unusual. We've seen a lot of pullbacks to the 50-day moving average line on the S&P 500. That's where the buy on the dip mentality comes in strong. So given where we got to, we didn't get too far extended, but if you just kind of look at all those tops, it kind of got to that trend line. So a pullback here wouldn't be unusual, and it's just a matter of making sure you don't get too hurt and really have your watch list ready in case that buy on the dip comes again. We might as well take a look at the NASDAQ. Yep. And also, that one is barely below its 10-day moving average line. So it's getting support right there. So you just, there isn't anything here worth panicking over, but a little bit of weakness, that's going to be a normal thing for the market.
Yeah, S&P 500 lost about 0.5%, and again, it was a pretty weak close for all three major stock indexes. NASDAQ ends with a loss of almost 0.3%, but like you said, holding support at the 10-day moving average. Same with the NASDAQ 100. Take a look at the Qs here. Kind of a close near lows, reverses lower, but holds support so far at the 10-day line. Small caps actually, they gave back early gains as well. Russell 2000 came close to its 50-day moving average yesterday. It actually looks like it ended higher by about 0.6%, so a little bit of outperformance for small caps today. Although actually, no, I'm looking at a delayed quote here, so the Russell actually gave back a lot of gains too.
Yeah, and one thing that we were talking about, basically mid-session, things were looking pretty good for the indexes, but then there was kind of a downdraft right around 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern time. That followed the what was it, the 30-year bond auction.
Right.
So you noted that we were kind of dealing with that bond auction where the 10-year Treasury was coming down. The yield at least a little bit. So I don't know if that's what was kind of weighing on things, but that's certainly a factor.
Yeah, clearly the bond market saw a lot of inflows today. There was a lot of bond buying going on because that 10-year Treasury yield was only down about 1 basis point to
Right.
1.33%, and I saw it recently down about 5 basis points to below 1.3%. So definitely money flowing into bonds today.
And
All
that
right.
happened in about a 5 minute time span. It
Yes,
just really
exactly.
came down quick.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's start by taking a look at Lululemon, which was in the headlines today because of a really outstanding earnings report. Really, it's you can see the 3 months ago it reported huge growth and huge growth this time around. Now, this stock gapped up and gave back a lot of those gains. Looks like it still ended higher by about 10%. What do you make of the price action here today?
Yeah, so I mean, it looked like a great breakaway gap. It had pulled back below its 50-day moving average line, but not in a destructive way. I mean, you look at the pattern that it had, that cup with handle pattern, and it was basically, kind of pulling back into the buy range, if you will, but not all the way, not giving up all the gains, all the way back to its buy point. So
Right.
I don't think it looked like a broken stock. Before today, and certainly after the earnings, you've got to appreciate when the earnings are so robust that analysts are out there just revaluing what they think the company is worth. But a lot of times you will have a lot of price discovery during those times. And so my preference, of course, is always that you get a higher close. But this is where you can look at where is it in relation to yesterday's close and today's high, and kind of give yourself a true range. In that case, it's not so bad. But again, my preference is always for a little bit of a higher close in its range.
Yeah, it was a nice revenue beat for Lululemon, nice earnings beat as well. Their guidance for the current quarter was also very, very strong. And I think what was noteworthy is that CEO Calvin McDonald said that over the past 2 years, men's sales is actually outpacing women's sales at the store. Men's sales over the past 2 years up 31%, the women's business up 26%. So Lululemon has done a really good job of kind of branching out and offering
Mhm.
more products to more people. Now, the weekly chart of Lululemon here, it kind of smooths out that
Exactly.
volatility. So, I mean, to me, I mean, this stock really doesn't look like it's overly extended from its 10-week line. What would you say to people that, hey, want to start a new position in Lulu at this point?
I don't hate the idea, because here
Yeah.
again, you take that step back to the weekly. First of all, if you were holding this stock and you had some cushion into earnings, it didn't look very bad. I mean, it was barely closing below the 10-week last week. So again, that could have easily kept you in. And really, if you look at it, if you draw a line straight across from the highs, this is kind of breaking out of a little shelf, if you will.
Yeah.
Not quite long enough to be a flat base, but certainly uh, in that vein. So you're right in there in terms of that flat area, that shelf area, and it's not too far extended there. And here again, it does seem like retail is an area that is getting a little bit of a boost. It had a little bit of weakness, but this market has been one of rotation. So if retail comes on, Lulu seems like one of the first ones out of the gate here that might be worth taking a flyer
Yeah,
on.
definitely. Well, we definitely have a retail flavor in today's video because next stock we're going to look at is RH, and we'll start by looking at the weekly chart here. You can see a nice up near its high for the week. Let's go to the daily first and see that this company reported earnings, made a nice move above the 700 level. Very, very strong volume. But what do you do with this chart? Because every time the stock tries to break out, it just kind of pulls back and just seems to have a hard time making headway. So if this thing were to eventually cross that 744 high, I mean, is a pullback coming? What do you make of the chart here? Is this a stock with a healthy technical picture?
Yeah, I'm torn on that, because I've played RH a number of times, and I feel like RH is definitely better on the pullbacks.
Yeah.
That's what's been working for it. As you mentioned, it seems like every time it gets to that breakout area, it quickly fails, reverses. Now that being said, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a stock give a number of head fakes, and then when you finally throw in the towel and say, forget it, I'm not going to try this again, that's the one that works. So that's something that happens. But in this case, while I would have preferred the pullback, look, there's no way I was going to be buying this ahead of earnings. So now that we've got the earnings out of the way, you can always size your position a little bit differently. And, maybe you have a little bit of a tighter stop. There's a lot of different ways you can play it, but I do think that here we are getting back above that 700 level again. The question is going to be, can we remain there? Because that's been the difficult area. It's popped above that 700 level before and hasn't been able to maintain itself above it. So this could be the one. Again, this was a strong reaction to earnings. Again, you look at the way it closed. It was a 7% gain for the day, a little bit over 7%, but you look at the way it closed, where the market was weak, this still closed very strong. And that's certainly a positive. And as you mentioned, that volume is pretty incredible the last 2 days.
Yeah, and this stock has always been a favorite of the shorts. It always tends to have a fairly high short interest. So maybe a little bit of short covering today, but a lot of volume, and the fact that it closed near highs. I mean, it did really exactly what Lulu did. I mean, this one closed near highs. Lulu gave back, even though it ended with a nice percentage gain. Lulu did give back a lot of its gains. Okay, and then
and the relative strength line on this one, I think, is a little bit stronger. For as much as it's not been able to make too much progress above 700, it really hasn't. You could see this getting to new highs fairly quickly on the relative strength line.
Yeah, well, it was a great report, and again, similar to Lululemon, very nice revenue guidance from RH. They now see full year sales up 31 to 33%. That's up from prior guidance of 25 to 30%. And Wells Fargo lifted RH's price target today to 800 from 725. All right, let's conclude by talking about Macy's, which is kind of on our radar here after a fairly orderly pullback down to the 21-day moving average. That's this purple line here. This big move in this area here was fueled by a very bullish earnings report. Would you call this an orderly pullback in a stock that looks actionable here?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at not only how heavy was the volume after that earnings report, that's certainly your institutions, saying, hey, look, I need more shares of Macy's. That's not the retail trader, pushing that stock up. And then you look at how the volume really just trickled off to basically nothing, especially compared to that very heavy volume. So that is our definition of an orderly pullback. Now, it's a little bit debatable when something breaks out into new high territory and then pulls back. Sometimes we call that a high handle. Other people are more purist and say, look, I don't like that when that happens. But it certainly got support at a good level, got support right there at the 21-day moving average line, didn't give up much. And this group has been one of the strongest groups. You wouldn't think so, but department stores is the number 3 group out of 197 groups. And this is something that we've been seeing really establish itself in the top half or the top actually 10 of the groups lately.
Okay. Well, all right. That'll do it for today. Thanks very much for your insight, Justin. 3 retailers in the spotlight today: Lululemon and RH rising sharply on earnings, and Macy's a nice rally today after a pullback to the 21-day line. All right. Well, that'll do it for today. Ed Carson and myself will be back tomorrow to end the week, just after the market close, for the next stock market today video. Justin, again, thanks for the insight, and we will see you all back here tomorrow. Have a great afternoon, everybody.